I just love that music. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dojo Live. Today is Wednesday, May 4th, 2022, in case you forgot the year. This is Tulio Sergusa, broadcasting from Southern California. And joining me is America Guerrero from Mexico.
Hey, everybody.
America. She's co-hosting with me today. And our guest is Morgan Howell, who's the founder and CTO at Stock Alarm. He is a little north of where I am in Sausalito, California. Welcome to the show, Morgan. Good to have you.
Yeah, stoked to be on.
All right. So today we're going to talk about democratizing financial markets. But before we go into the topic of conversation and see what question we're going to answer, we promise that it's going to be an interesting show. But before we do that, let's get to know our guest. So, Morgan, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself. Once again, welcome to the show.
Sure thing. Well, I'm relatively new to California. Been out here for about 4 years now. Originally from a small town out in North Carolina. Have had sort of a lot of different jobs after college and before starting my own gig. I guess starting with college, I graduated from UNC, so I'm happy to call myself a Tar Heel. And after UNC, I joined Facebook, moving from North Carolina out to California. At Facebook, I mostly worked on payment products. So that included payments and Messenger, as well as a lot of infrastructure related product teams that went around and integrated banks for order management solutions and things of that nature. Then I pivoted after 3 years to an ed tech startup. Sort of helping build interactive courses and sort of really dig into the learning process. And after that, I actually chose to jump onto what was a former side project full-time, Stock Alarm. And since January, I've been working there as the CTO. And we've really been sort of diving into a range of features just to support everyday traders in all the forms we can.
And how old are you?
Yeah, so I guess maybe one of the more young audience members here, but 26.
That's impressive. Thank you.
Very impressive. We've had a few young CEOs and CTOs on here too, but age is just a number. So
yes,
tell us a little bit more about Stock Alarm. You went into it a little bit. Like, we're curious as to what was the ha-ha moment that was like, we should do this, and what is it that you got to do today?
Yeah, so I would say it all came really from sort of solving a personal problem. When I was sort of back in North Carolina, I sort of financially supported myself throughout college and after, and I found trading to be a great means to have side income while I was primarily focusing on studying. And I wasn't necessarily happy with the tool set available on sort of like markets today. In the sense that, for instance, whenever I would sort of wake up early in the morning or go out to the West Coast to live, everything was sort of, shifted back by 3 hours. And so I found cases where I would want to sort of be woken up in the morning due to something interesting happening in the market. So the initial idea was, wouldn't it be cool to have a sort of alarm clock that you could set up to trigger through all these sort of custom means, whether that's through like a price target, a percent change. And that's where the idea was born. And although at first I didn't necessarily think it would gain traction, it was just sort of solving that sort of personal problem. I ended up throwing it out there, and now we have over 100,000 users on the platform that get a lot of the same value and now take benefit in other features as well.
Interesting. Okay, I want to learn some more. I'm curious if it's day traders or actual institutional traders. Let's go and dig into all that. But before we do, let's introduce the topic and see what question we're answering today. America, if you could kick that off.
Yeah, sure. So the question is, why it is important to make traditional high-tech products accessible to folks from all backgrounds. And this is related with democratizing, right? Why this word? Why this topic? Why is it relevant for today?
Yeah, so I think traditionally, if you look at who has benefited from all the returns of Wall Street, traditionally it's been sort of the institutional investors that leverage high-tech tools. Especially in like fields like quantitative trading, but also in sort of environments with more standard institutional traders, they use tools like the Bloomberg terminal, which is $25,000 a year per user, or take techniques like algorithmic trading to scalp pennies and make many trades in a matter of nanoseconds to milliseconds. And all those things have provided great economic benefit, but only to the select few that can either afford the tools or in the know. And so sort of given my background of finding social mobility in the market, but also not having access to those tools, I think it's really important that we bridge the gap, so to speak, and we can offer a lot of the tools that have benefited that select group to everyone in a way that can be easily understood. And I think that's important, especially recently, because in 2020, around the time of the GMC and sort of AMC hype, the sort of volume of retail investors overtook both the trading volume of institutional investors and sort of quantitative hedge funds and things like that as well. And so given that more and more people are getting into the market, I think it's time to even the playing field with the wolves of Wall Street that are maybe used to taking advantage of the unknown, so that that social mobility can be more accessible for a larger group.
Very interesting. And not too long ago, we had a company that was talking about video spatial data. A lot of investors also have access to things like how much traffic is in the parking lots of retailers. That ties into their projection for the quarter, so they can determine whether their projection is going to be on or off. And they're making that accessible to the public, to anyone who wants it, which was something I didn't even know that Wall Street was doing. They've got all these little secret sauce things they've been doing for years. So this is available now. Let's call it the power of the institutional traders available at the hands of whom? Are these day traders, people who are just doing this themselves, hobby traders, or professionals who are independent? Can you break it down a little bit in terms of who is the 100,000 customers? Who are they?
Yeah, sure. So in my mind, this is not for sort of the folks that have sort of the carved out time throughout the entire day to stay sort of stuck on their portfolio, right? And just like continue monitoring. Like when I think of attempting to take these sort of tools that allow real-time alerting and more sophistication with sort of easier sort of setup, I imagine folks that are maybe a bit earlier in sort of like their trading career, and may have a full-time job, but whether they are unable to constantly monitor due to other responsibilities, or the fact that they may have a different working schedule. Maybe they're not even in the U.S. There are sort of tools in my mind that are needed to save back that time or win back that time. These sort of, I would call them more amateur retail traders that maybe entered the market recently through well-designed tools like Robinhood and others. They do need a path to learn about sort of all the ways that one can benefit from both researching stocks, sourcing stocks, and determining when to exit or enter a position. And in my mind, by using sort of notifications at first, but then more advanced triggers such as automated trading, we can start to ladder up these traders that are working professionals, not necessarily in finance, but are interested in benefiting from the stock market and having a path to learn in a way that doesn't cost them a lot of money.
So I just want to go back a little bit. Thank you for that. I just want to go back a little bit, maybe blow out this picture a little bit. So there's been a trend in many markets where people have been turned into employees of the company. Let's call it what it is. Self-service basically is making everyone an employee of the company. In financial markets, you had to go to a trader to be able to do trades and things of that sort, right? You didn't have the tools, you didn't have the technology. Then by basically democratizing trading, where he made it accessible for an app for anyone, you don't even have to have a Series 7 or 6 or be licensed. You can buy and trade and sell stock. Kind of dangerous initially without any intelligence behind it for anyone who was learning. But nonetheless, that technology has advanced a lot. And there are some tools in there to help day traders make smarter decisions. But what I'm hearing is this takes it to another level. Like, this is more like adding another layer of intelligence. We're putting more power in the actual trader's hand, because instead of being at the mercy of the platform you're using, who decides this is a good idea, and then you do your own analysis, this gives you another layer of quantitative and perhaps even AI, if you guys are using that. Is that a fair assessment on how people are using this? How is this enhancing what they're already doing with these existing platforms? And in some ways, are these existing platforms potential partners who could license this as well?
Totally. So when I think of existing platforms that have had highest impact on the same target audience of retail traders that might not have that much experience, I think to Robinhood. I think back to robo investing apps and things of that nature that make trading easier. That could be through a well-designed UI, like in sort of Robinhood's case, where it's really easy to set yourself up with a brokerage and begin trading. Not as many barriers to entry, as well as things like images that explain what an options contract is, so that as someone is sort of executing an order, they understand sort of the basics of the strategy. And that's all great, but as we know, trading can be risky. There can be many factors that come into play, not only from ensuring that the fundamentals of the stock that you invest in are good, but also that you are caught up to date with everything that may be happening, whether that's a new news article, a drop in sentiment, whether that is a huge spike in trading volume for that stock, or huge sort of just simple price increase. And so while I think there will always be the power of the brokerages enabling people to sort of buy and sell stocks, there's a whole nother space, whole nother layer here that should inform and educate how users both react to changes in the market and source and research to, I would say, build confidence in not just the fundamentals I mentioned, but also the technicals. And so I believe that Stock Alarm sort of plays in that space. So while we are working with the sort of partnership integration to start executing trades soon, I would say our secret sauce is in a very accessible, cheap way, allowing folks to both research and source through, being able to scan markets for all the sort of factors they may be looking for, which is something not offered on just these sort of traditional brokerage apps, as well as taking that a step further. Once you've sourced, once you're either holding a stock or thinking about entering one, getting sort of real-time alerts, whether that's through text, email, phone call, all things that sort of support your trading flow, like a expensive Bloomberg sort of terminal subscription would be, but in your pocket, easy to use, easy to understand. And the thing about having an emphasis and sort of research, education, and these real-time notifications is, you're not losing massive amounts of money on trades before you can start to learn. So, if you want to, if you have a theory, if you want to set up a strategy, whether that's on Stock Alarm, creating a new scanner or creating new alarms, you can begin to test your hypotheses, have a hypothesis-driven approach about a particular stock, and then see, if that actually comes to fruition. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of platforms like MarketWatch that are having sort of virtual sort of markets where you can begin experimenting. And while we've considered that, there is some sort of separation with playing with sort of funny money, virtual currency and your actual money. And with Stock Alarm, we're both, while we have the emphasis in research, as I mentioned, we are starting to connect directly with brokerages to execute trades. And we believe that sort of path to being able to identify stocks and then execute trades ladders folks up in a more practical way than necessarily just always sort of reading the pure literature or just going and trading with fake currency. So it's a bit of a mix of both, because you're both learning, reading, setting alerts, but then that allows you to see like how fast the market moves and learn things quickly.
Great. I have a question for you. How do you deal with the SEC regulations as it relates to making recommendations? How is it working?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of regulations, there are sort of a few things that we have to consider, when we're sort of integrating with, for instance, like brokerages, and we want to pull after hours data. We have to have something called a UTP authorization. So our company was able to secure that about 6 months after we released the MVP. And so there are other small things like, during extended hours, we need to show like an icon that we're 15 minutes delayed, because during extended hours, volume could be really low. There could be like high bid-ask spread. And I would say our approach so far, since we're really trying to focus on, making infrastructure tools that are already out there accessible to more people, we really try to bundle, I would say, other providers and services that already really take care of the SEC regulations for us. So when I mentioned we were connecting directly to brokerages, we're actually using a company that is sort of serving as a wrapper to Fidelity, IB, Robinhood, all the big brokerages, and luckily they get to sort of worry about all the liability with regards to how that is executed with the SEC and such. And we are at the foremost, a sort of research tool. And I would say when it comes to the SEC, luckily, we don't necessarily need any sort of deep compliance with payments or being able to ensure that we're actually closing someone's account in the proper way, because as I mentioned, we're sort of able to mix those providers, show some disclaimers, and be in a position that minimizes liability on our side.
Right. You said something interesting. You did spend a little time in an ed tech company, and as I'm listening to you, I started thinking, what's the hurdle? This is the design thinking head coming on, right? What's the hurdle for daytime traders or people who want to do more of it? And I kept thinking the hurdle is not having the right education up front. Number two, I would love to be able to give the ability to do mock-up trades and just play around to see how some of these things come together, and give yourself maybe a couple of months to see how you would have done making certain tools, use of certain tools. And then like, oh, okay, I trust myself enough that I've got this dialed in right to go ahead and play with real money, right? Is that something that could become available with this kind of thing? In other words, if I use this, can I use it in mock-up scenarios, or do I have to play right away with real money? How does that come into the picture?
Yeah, so I may not have clarified as much as I should have when I was sort of mentioning how MarketWatch offers sort of virtual markets, and we're deciding not to take that approach now. But in my mind, you can already do that today effectively on the platform, because sort of going back to the MVP, the core value prop for why I sort of decided to build this and the initial set of features. It's really around going in with a hypothesis, setting the trigger for that hypothesis, and then in real time with real data coming in from the market, seeing if it triggers or not. And so that being said, let's say you have a hypothesis that a stock will increase in price if sort of the volume spikes, if there's a recent volume spike. So you can go set a trigger, have that hypothesis, and if you get that alert, then you could prove your hypothesis or disprove it, right? And so while that means we're not necessarily taking the approach of going and buying a stock with that virtual currency and then seeing what your overall portfolio is. It does make things, where you're building a good relationship. You're building a healthier relationship, I would say, with how you sort of react to the market moves that you've sort of set up, and sort of using that research. And reason being is because if you're playing around with virtual currency for too long, you might start building a lot of confidence, and then when you translate that over to real currency, you might be surprised to see that you're way more emotional than you originally intended or felt like when you were trading virtual currency. Mm-hmm. And so I think like emotions can be one of the sort of deadliest things in the markets and retail trading, because if you are panic selling with everyone else, sometimes that can be the best time to buy when people are getting scared, and vice versa when people are getting too greedy and a stock is sort of being overbought. You don't want to get FOMO. You want to be able to be patient. And so I think by not building false confidence in virtual currencies, rather having like deeper integration with sort of how you research, how you're taking a hypothesis driven approach in the markets, and then directly connecting that to real money might be a more natural path to form the right behaviors. Right. As opposed to going on Market Watch, buying 1,000 shares of that virtual currency, feeling real good, and then dumping your whole bank account in something to YOLO.
Yeah, playing Monopoly doesn't necessarily guarantee you're going to be a real estate tycoon if you're good at Monopoly.
Yep. I think you have to focus on first principles, focus on the fundamentals, right. Test it with a small amount of real money, and that's at least what I'm thinking. Maybe that's a better path to starting to build the correct habits.
Makes Great. Sense. And about creating habits, let's talk about features. How do you validate features? Or do you have a super user group, or what could you share with us?
Yeah, so most of our features are actually directly from customer requests. When we originally released the very first version of the product, it was just on iOS. You could only set upper and lower limits, similar to like limit order with all those certain notification options. But since we threw it out there and folks started using it, we added Android and web. We've had many regular users that just provide feedback on new trigger types they want, new feedback points that they may have, and a lot of places in the app where you can do that. You can do what we call rage shake the app and give direct feedback, or when you're setting an alarm, there's a sort of dedicated button for requesting a new one. And essentially what we've done is we've taken all that, ranked and sorted it, tried to make sure the top candidates align with our larger sort of like product strategy of trying to reach the most people with the most impactful tools and such. And from that, there have been sort of the full gamut of features that we've built. So just to name a few, we've at this point released 80 different trigger types. So that might relate to MACD, RSI triggers, or more things like news related and sentiment related. We've also had sort of a lot of customers that say, hey, I wake up in the morning and I spend hours just trying to add alarms to many stocks on some criteria that I'm looking for, and then I just wait, see which one hits. And so people didn't necessarily, I guess, realize it or ask for it explicitly, but that's essentially like doing the manual work for setting up a scanner. So we recently released a stock market scanner, and that would be more towards the sourcing and research side of things. But essentially, you can mix and match many filters, whether that's all the stocks below $100 that had a recent 52-week high or something in that nature. And that allows you to scan all the markets, exchanges of your choice to figure out what you actually want to track. And so just being able to automate things so the user can leverage, a lot of the sort of tools for whether that's scanning or related to other things, gives, users more power. And as I mentioned with these, these target users usually having like full-time job, it's important that we automate as much as possible, take the load off them, so we could do the monitor and research while they focus on the fundamentals and figuring out what they should actually enter and exit in.
So before we go into understanding the company a little bit more, as we come to the final segment of our conversation today, I'm you got me thinking. We had a guest last week where we were talking about user experience and customer experience, and how certain things are synonymous, that have become synonymous. Like you want to search something and you say, go Google it, or what have you, right? Xerox used to be synonymous with going to make copies, but they failed to keep up with changes in the marketplace. They didn't democratize printing when the marketplace required it. More people working from home, bubble jet printers, etc. And companies like Canon jumped in and literally ate their lunch, right? So they didn't innovate fast enough to keep up with the changing marketplace. The financial service industry has spent billions in creating platforms and solutions. There's software companies, fintech companies that serve these companies very well. Is this an example of that same thing, where these companies have been so focused on the institutional investors, but more and more people are saying, I want to trade on my own? And then what's to stop them from offering these tools to consumers like you guys are doing? Do you have sort of that differentiation point that says, even if they do, we'd have a leg up on them? What's your thought process? Is that something that crosses your mind? How do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so I think when I'm thinking through the past of like products that have either been deprecated because there's something more accessible, better out, or strides of companies sort of shifting focus to sort of innovate and not just continue to invest on maybe something that's for the company. I really think about sort of like, who are they serving, and what mission are they trying to accomplish? And when you mention sort of like the tooling for sort of institutional investors, I imagine tools that I mentioned with super high subscription fees, things that are might require like a software engineer or someone with like deep sort of finance background. And I would say that those things are a bit of a different flavor from meeting someone where they are and then laddering up to that place in a way that might not expose all the complexities right out of the door, but allows them to build confidence and understand kind of what's underneath, or sort of at a high level, those complexities, so that they can apply it in a practical way. So I think that there is still no lack of economic opportunity among like Wall Street to Wall Street and within Wall Street to serve themselves. But I would say that and this is a big problem for a lot of like large companies that serve specialized use cases. It's going to be I would say tougher to pivot from something that's purely B2B or purely meant to serve someone that's professional to understanding how users at a critical mass need to sort of learn, interact, build confidence with that tooling. So that's an education problem. It's also a sort of problem with design, like modern design elements, and how you interact with like a mobile first app, or is something as simple as being able to interact with the sort of system that you're setting up. Because like a lot of times, if you're setting up triggers or systems to automate things, can get really complicated. A lot of conditions, a lot of numbers, a lot of things that need to be explained. And there is sort of like in my mind, going back to like the problem that I've seen in a lot of companies where they have a tough time bridging that gap with, okay, we've done this well for folks that specialize in it, but now how do we sort of rebuild things or take a new approach so that someone with little background can actually understand what they're doing and begin to engage in that. I just personally feel that there's already so much benefit within Wall Street of them sort of serving themselves, that while they could start to invest in simply design tools for the masses, it's going to be a lot harder to make that pivot, because it kind of involves a different skill set of
I think you hit the nail in the head, where that's the problem with a lot of these large companies, is their product was created for you to meet them where they are, versus companies that are more nimble and smaller are democratizing services their product is designed to meet the user where they are. So it's a complete opposite approach to the market, and pivoting from meet us in play in our play garden to we'll come play in your play garden is a big deal. It's a big challenge. So we totally appreciate that. We're up on time, but we wouldn't want to end the show without talking a little bit about Stock Alarm. I think America has one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right.
You're on mute, channeling Carlos.
I'm sorry. So we already talked about education, sharing information, sharing with the community. How is this related with the values of your company? I mean, what could you share about Stock Alarm culture? How is it look like to work there? How are your employees? What could you share?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, we wouldn't necessarily be doing justice to our mission of, democratizing financial tooling and even the playing field if we didn't reflect that internally as well. And so some ways that we sort of implement the culture that we're also trying to build in the product is by having a flat hierarchy. So we're not a company that puts a lot of weight and importance in, what your title may be or how long you've been working at the company. We really like to have an experiment-driven approach that sources the ideas from direct user feedback. And so what that means is, if you're a developer, if you're in marketing, no matter what part of the sort of company you're on, you have the freedom to sort of, pitch your own ideas, build your own experiments and, actually have a chance to influence the roadmap. So we're really sort of, I guess, not a fan of the waterfall type culture of having everything be top down, but sort of having like, I guess, the more grassroots approach. And along the topic of experimentation, we want to make sure what we release is valuable and quality to our users. So we use a lot of product insight tooling like Amplify and others to make sure that when we release a feature, it's actually helping people. And we keep a lot of sort of top line metrics to build confidence. And, if someone feels strongly about an initiative, supporting that, but with sort of statistical significance.
Beautiful.
Love that. It's also a lot more scalable that way. It's so much work just having people in charge of things, everything, this waterfall top-down approach. It's not scalable. Rather than actually taking on every challenge as a project that a number of people can participate to solve, then, you have collaboration and you also have the agility of not having to wait for one person to make a decision. So kudos to that for you guys. We're strong supporters of that strategy. We need to see more companies doing that. We're up on time. We could keep talking. We've learned a lot today. Thanks for being with us. So if you are a day trader or just someone who's got a side hustle trading and you want to get smarter about how you make decisions and trigger events to increase your portfolio value, check out Stock Alert. So that's the way to do it. Stock Alarm. Sorry, excuse me. Forgive me. So let's just stay with us as we go off the air in just a second. Again, thank you for being with us, Morgan, who's the founder and CTO at Stock Alarm. Let's just announce what we got coming up. We have 2 more shows. Tomorrow, we have a 10 a.m. show. It's our design thinking show. It'll be a one-on-one show with myself. And I don't have the information readily in front of me. Just here it is with Matthew. Then at noon, we have Matthew Van Berskirk with Hummingbird. That's at 12 o'clock Pacific. And Carlos or Ruben, if you guys could post in the chat who we have at 10 a.m. tomorrow, I'd love to announce it. Otherwise, back tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the Design Thinking Show, where we explore how you can design better products and services and organizational structures to meet the needs of today. That's with Anshu Sharma, who is the CEO at Skyflow, tomorrow at 10 a.m. See you all back soon. Be safe, and don't forget to have some fun.